There's a moment, not loud, not dramatic, when something subtle inside you starts to stir. You can't see it. You can't hear it. But it's there, pulsing just beneath your awareness. This is the beginning of Thoth's forbidden technique. And if you're still here, listening, feeling something shifting inside, that pulse may have already started. It's called the first pulse, not because it's your first time feeling, but because it's the first time your frequency crosses a threshold. A threshold where your inner state begins to organize the outer world. Thoth never spoke in riddles for the sake of mystery. His teachings were clear, potent, and vibrational. He knew something that most of us forgot, that reality doesn't respond to actions. It responds to emissions. And those emissions begin long before your words, before your thoughts even complete a sentence. They begin in the pulse. Let's pause here and feel into something. Have you ever walked into a room and known instantly that something was off? Nobody said a word, no obvious sign, but your body knew. That knowing doesn't come from logic. It comes from a part of you that's always listening, your inner field. That's the antenna Thoth spoke about, the subtle radar, tuned not to language, but to frequency. And this is the entry point. When the pulse activates, the field begins to emit instead of just absorb. Most people live like static-filled radios. So much inner noise, so many conflicting thoughts, unprocessed emotions, unresolved memories. The signal is weak, scattered. They react, they spiral, and they wonder why nothing changes. But here's the truth Thoth tried to teach. The moment you align your signal, when your mind, your heart, your focus, and your feeling become one coherent emission, you stop echoing chaos. You start radiating command. This isn't spiritual poetry. It's mechanics. Just like a radio must be tuned to a certain frequency to receive a clear station, your field must be tuned to a specific vibration to send a clear message to the universe. Otherwise, you're just shouting into static. Now here's where it gets wild. The first pulse doesn't need you to believe in it. It's not a belief system. It's not religion. It's a vibrational fact. It works whether you accept it or not. Because the field doesn't care about your beliefs. It listens to your broadcast. And the moment that signal becomes coherent, when your inner noise drops and your true intent rises, reality listens. But this is where the danger lies too. Because once your signal becomes coherent, everything accelerates. Reality begins to respond faster. The mirror reflects you more precisely. That's why Thoth warned, don't activate what you can't sustain. Once your field starts broadcasting with clarity, the universe responds in kind. And that means both light and shadow come faster. Your unprocessed patterns, amplified. Your authentic desires, accelerated. There's no hiding. The field doesn't judge. It reflects. That's why many ancient teachings spoke of purification. Not because you need to be perfect, but because your broadcast needs clarity. Imagine trying to tune into a divine signal, but your emotional field is filled with resentment, fear, unspoken rage. The signal gets distorted. You emit contradiction, and the universe replies with confusion. So Thoth's technique doesn't begin with affirmations or visualizations. It begins with alignment, the quiet realignment of your internal forces. And when that happens, when the pulse begins, you feel it. Not in your thoughts, but in your body. The air feels different. Time bends slightly. Synchronicities spike. You think of someone they call. You consider a change. Opportunities show up. But this isn't magic. It's resonance. You've become a signal worth responding to. This is the moment where the observer becomes the creator. When you stop watching life and begin shaping it. Not with effort, but with coherence. Because power isn't in volume. It's in clarity. The cleaner your signal, the more potent your reality becomes. Let's go deeper. Every thought you have carries a frequency. But that frequency is shaped, amplified, or muted by your emotion. Think of thought as the transmitter and emotion as the voltage. You could have a high-frequency thought like, I am whole, but if it's paired with the emotion of fear or doubt, the signal drops. It doesn't reach the field. Or worse, it sends a mixed message. And the universe, precise and literal, returns static. Now reverse that. Imagine that same thought. I am whole. carried by a deep sense of certainty, a grounded inner peace. Now your signal is coherent. That's when the first pulse becomes something stronger, an energetic signature, a vibration that carries your essence out into the invisible world and imprints reality. And yes, that word, imprint. Thoth taught that reality isn't just something you observe, it's something you imprint with your presence. And the field doesn't care if that imprint is unconscious or intentional. It will respond either way. This is why awakening inner vision is not about seeing spirits or having hallucinations. It's about reading reality as a vibrational feedback loop. You emit, it reflects, you adjust, it shifts. And the better you get at reading that loop, the more powerful you become. But here's the catch. Most people never reach the first pulse consciously because they're too busy reacting. They don't slow down long enough to listen, to feel the whisper. They wait for the lightning bolt. But Thoth knew the divine doesn't shout. It whispers. The pulse is a breeze, not a bang, and only the attentive receive it. So let me ask you, when was the last time you felt something shift and honored it instead of doubting it? When did you last trust the tingling nudge that said, go here, say this, wait now? That's your field communicating. That's the pulse giving direction. And every time you ignore it, you muffle your own power. But every time you follow it, even slightly, the signal strengthens. Eventually, a tipping point comes. You feel more guided than lost, more attuned than confused. And that's when the world begins to obey. Not because you're forcing it, but because you've become aligned with its rhythm. This is not a place of control. It's a place of congruence. Your inside and outside no longer fight. Your intent, your emotion, your attention, your being, they all vibrate in one direction. And in that direction, doors open that logic can't explain. This is the realm where synchronicity becomes your language, where inner vision is not about seeing something mystical, but understanding what's already in front of you with new clarity. Patterns, symbols, events, all start to speak, but only because you've finally begun to listen. That's Thoth's hidden pulse. Not forbidden because it's dangerous, but because it dismantles illusions. The illusion that you're powerless. The illusion that reality is fixed. The illusion that your thoughts are private. They're not. You're always emitting. And now, you've begun to emit on purpose. The pulse has started. The field is listening. The most uncomfortable truth you'll ever face is this. Your life isn't happening to you. It's responding to you. Not to what you say you want, not to what you wish for, but to what you vibrate. This is where Thoth's technique begins to unravel the illusions we were trained to live under. Because if reality responds not to words or actions, but to energy, your internal frequency, then it means one thing. You're already shaping everything around you. You just didn't know you were doing it. And now that you do, everything changes. Think back to the days that spiral downward. You spill coffee in the morning, and then everything else seems to go wrong. Traffic, an argument, a missed opportunity. By noon, you've written the whole day off. It feels cursed, but it wasn't cursed. It was just echoing. One emotional frequency rippled outward and gathered matching events along the way. Not by magic, but by magnetism. Thoth warned about this not to frighten you, but to wake you up. He understood that most suffering doesn't come from punishment. It comes from resonance. That's why guilt is useless. Shame is unproductive. They trap you in low-frequency loops. Because the universe doesn't care how sorry you are. It doesn't even care if you're trying your best. It reflects what you consistently emit. And this is liberating, if you let it be. Because it means the moment you begin shifting your vibration, your life begins recalibrating. Not overnight, not instantly, but inevitably. Now, let's be real. This is not about pretending to be happy. You can't fake a vibration. You can't lie to the field. Affirming, I am abundant, while vibrating fear around money doesn't activate wealth, it activates contradiction. And the field always responds to the dominant frequency. Always. That's why it feels like nothing changes when you do all the right things. You said the affirmations, did the vision board, even try to feel good. But your subconscious was still screaming doubt. And the universe heard that. Because your energy field has a 24/7 broadcast. It never turns off, and it doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. So if you want to change the world outside, you have to address what's inside. And that means one thing: emotional honesty. Your emotions are not problems. They are information, signals, keys. And Thoth knew this. That's why he didn't teach emotional suppression. He taught emotional alchemy. He knew that the emotional body is the antenna of your vibration. You don't broadcast with your brain. You broadcast with your feelings. And if those feelings are rooted in fear, resentment, or lack, then no amount of spiritual talk will change your signal. So what do? You stop bypassing your emotions and start decoding them. Every negative feeling is not a block. It's a doorway into understanding what you're really vibrating. That anger, maybe it's suppressed power. That fear, maybe it's a gift of heightened awareness waiting to be refined. That grief, maybe it's unexpressed love. The problem isn't the emotion. The problem is the resistance to it. Thoth's technique doesn't avoid emotion. It transforms it. You take the raw energy of a feeling and convert it into clarity, alignment, and power. This is emotional transmutation. It's not pretty. It's not always comfortable, but it is sacred, because once you begin to feel cleanly, without judgment, something incredible happens. Your signal gets clearer. Your field gets stronger, and the universe begins responding in new ways. You'll notice it first in small things. A stranger says something that answers a question you were silently holding. A delay ends up being the perfect timing. Something you let go of weeks ago shows up better than you imagined. These aren't coincidences. They're calibrations. Proof that your field is changing. This is where inner vision starts to crack open. Not as visions of angels or otherworldly realms, although that may come later, but as simple, profound clarity in your current reality. You see through patterns that used to confuse you. You spot emotional traps before they pull you in. You recognize manipulation not by logic, but by vibration. This is the eye that sees through God, the same one through which God sees you. But here's where most people fall back asleep. They notice the shift, get excited, and then return to old habits, old doubts, old frequencies, because the mind loves familiarity even if it hurts. It's addicted to what it knows. That's why Thoth emphasized one thing over and over: practice. This isn't about intensity. It's about consistency. You don't have to feel high vibe every minute. You just have to stop leaking your power every time life pushes a button. And that means becoming aware of your default vibrations. What do you emit when no one is watching? What's the tone of your inner monologue? When something goes wrong, do you spiral into self-blame? When you think about your future, do you feel open or anxious? These moments are where your true frequency lies. Not on the surface, but deep in your field. Thoth taught that awareness alone begins the shift. You don't need to force change. You need to notice what's really there. And when you do, something begins to soften. You stop fighting reality. You start responding consciously. And in that space, your field reorganizes. This is why many mystics spoke of surrender, not as giving up, but as aligning with the flow of what is. Because when you stop resisting your current vibration, you can finally change it. You meet yourself where you are without shame. And from there, you choose differently. This is where the second layer of the technique activates. Not just awareness, but intentional emission. You begin to feel on purpose. You choose the emotion you want to radiate. Not fake it. Generate it. From memory. From gratitude. From imagination. You become the composer of your emotional field. And the field listens. You feel joy not because everything is perfect, but because you've decided that joy is your baseline. You radiate peace not because nothing disturbs you, but because you've trained your nervous system to hold it regardless. This is the true essence of sovereignty. The vibration is no longer hijacked by circumstance. It's guided by choice. And when your field becomes this stable, inner vision grows stronger. Your perceptions sharpen. You start to feel before things happen. You begin to know without needing evidence. And this knowing feels different from mental certainty. It lives deeper in the gut, in the skin, in the breath. It's not logical. It's vibrational. People around you will notice it. They'll feel your coherence. Some will be drawn to it. Others will be uncomfortable because your field, now clear and aligned, starts to act like a mirror. It reflects to others what they haven't faced in themselves. This is where spiritual strength is needed. To remain centered even when others project their chaos onto your clarity. Thoth warned about this, that the more aligned your vibration becomes, the more it will destabilize what isn't aligned around you. Relationships may shift. Environments may feel intolerable. But this is not loss. It's adjustment. The universe is reorganizing your reality to match your field. And the more you allow this, the more magnetic you become. You stop chasing. You start drawing. Not out of need, not out of hustle, but because you've become a vibrational match for what you truly desire. It's not coming to save you. It's coming to meet you, but only if you stay tuned. Because that's the game. Not high vibes, not constant joy, but tuning, realignment, again and again, like an instrument. You play your frequency until it hums with clarity. And when it does, reality hums back. That's the code Thoth left behind. A truth so simple it got buried under centuries of dogma. You're not a passive receiver. You are a vibrational emitter. And when you emit with intention, emotion, and focus, the field cannot ignore you. Because you're no longer whispering random signals into the void. You're speaking the language of creation. If vibration is the language of creation, then focus is the pen that writes it. Without focus, your signal scatters. Your energy leaks, and the frequency you're trying to sustain collapses under the weight of distraction. This is where many on the path of awakening falter. They feel the pulse. They begin to sense the field responding. But without focus, that pulse doesn't stabilize. Inner vision flickers in and out like a weak flame in the wind. Thoth was clear. Focus is not optional. It is the blade that cuts through illusion. It is the instrument that sharpens awareness and sculpts reality with precision. Without it, you're simply drifting, tossed around by thoughts, emotions, desires that aren't even yours. But with it, you become the sculptor of your reality, not just the observer. Let's get something straight. Focus isn't about intensity. It's not about furrowing your brow or trying really hard. It's about clarity. Holding your attention in one direction without being seduced by noise. In a world designed to fragment your attention, this is nothing short of spiritual rebellion. But it's also the foundation of power. Focus works like this. Where attention goes, energy flows. But not just energy, reality itself begins to gather and crystallize. Events, people, insights, circumstances, they start forming around your focal point. This is not wishful thinking. It's energetic architecture. The universe doesn't respond to scattered minds. It responds to directed consciousness. Imagine your attention as a spotlight. When it's diffused, nothing is clearly illuminated. But when it concentrates on one point, just one point, that point becomes the epicenter of manifestation. And when you sustain that attention with emotional energy, the point begins to pulse. The field hears it. The universe adjusts. This is how Thoth's technique transitions from activation to application. You felt the pulse. You started refining your emotional broadcast. Now you aim it. With focus. With intention. With unwavering clarity. And yes, this takes practice. Because your mind has been trained for chaos. Conditioned to jump from thought to thought, screen to screen, fear to fear. The brain is like a dog with no leash. It runs wherever the loudest distraction goes. That's not your fault. It's how the system was built. But it is your responsibility to change it. And that begins with reclaiming your gaze. You see, inner vision doesn't open with wide eyes. It opens with steady attention. It blooms in the silence between thoughts, in the stillness of presence, not in the rush to get somewhere or figure something out, but in the quiet act of being here, right now, fully, without turning away. Try this. Hold your attention on one sensation. The feeling of breath in your chest. The vibration in your hands. The sound of the wind. Hold it. Not for hours, but for just a moment longer than you're used to. When the mind tries to drift, bring it back. Gently, patiently. Each time you return, you sharpen the blade. Each time you stay, you strengthen your field. This is where focus becomes more than mental effort. It becomes vibrational discipline, a frequency you hold, not just with thoughts, but with your entire being. And the longer you hold it, the more the field responds. But here's where it gets alchemical. Because when focus meets emotion, real, refined feeling, you unlock magnetic power. This is the energy that bends time, that aligns circumstances, that draws opportunities like iron filings to a magnet. Because now, your signal isn't just strong, it's clear. And clarity is rare in a noisy world. Thoth didn't teach mystical spells to summon energy. He taught focus. Because once your inner vision locks onto a frequency, purely, consistently, without noise, it's only a matter of time before reality mirrors it. This is how true desire is born, not as craving, not as desperate wishing, but as vibrational certainty. The kind that doesn't beg for proof, because it is the proof. This is when you stop hoping for alignment and start emitting alignment. And when that happens, you stop chasing. You start magnetizing. Focus turns you from seeker to sender. But there's something deeper here. Focus is not just for external goals. It's for truth. Because as you sharpen it, you begin to cut through your own illusions, your stories, your conditioning. You start to see which thoughts are truly yours and which are echoes of someone else's fear. You notice the loops, the emotional patterns, the places where you leak power. And with that awareness, you can choose differently. This is where focus becomes liberation. Most people believe they're thinking, but they're just being thought. Programs run in the background. Beliefs pass down. Emotional responses inherited. But when your focus returns to the present moment, fully, consciously, you reclaim the throne of your mind. You stop being a spectator of your inner world and become the author of it. And this is the moment where inner vision truly ignites. Because now, you're no longer reacting. You're reading. You see the symbols in conversation, the patterns in behavior, the messages in delay. You start noticing the echo before the sound. And what once felt like confusion becomes confirmation. The world begins to organize itself around your clarity. It starts small, subtle, but real. A person shows up with the exact answer you've been silently pondering. An invitation arrives that bypasses months of effort. A piece of information falls into your lap with such timing it can't be coincidence. These aren't lucky breaks. They're vibrational feedback. This is the invisible order Thoth spoke of. A current beneath reality that you can tap into, but only if you're tuned. And tuning takes focus. You might be wondering, what do I focus on? That's the key. Not what your ego craves. Not what fear pushes you toward, but what your essence vibrates with. Focus isn't just about staring harder at your goals. It's about aligning with the frequency of your soul's blueprint. And you'll know it, not through logic, but through resonance. When a vision feels alive in your body. When an idea keeps returning with warmth. When a possibility lights you up, even in silence. That's not fantasy. That's vibrational memory. Your inner vision is remembering what's possible. And focus is how you hold that memory long enough for reality to catch up. This is what it means to wield Thoth's blade. Not to fight, but to clarify. To separate truth from noise. To hold your gaze on what is real, even when the world around you tries to pull you back into reaction. And with each moment of sustained presence, that blade sharpens. Your vision deepens. Your signal refines. Eventually, this focus becomes second nature. You stop forcing it. You are it. Distraction loses its grip. Emotional turbulence passes quicker. Mental chaos no longer hijacks your state. Because you've trained your system to hold the signal. And in that holding, the field aligns. That's when things start to move. Not by effort, but by coherence. You think it, and the field responds. You feel it, and the world reshapes. You desire, and life listens. Not because you said it out loud, but because your vibration spoke clearly. This is not magic. It's structure, not control, but alignment. And the moment you merge focus with clarity, with emotion, with truth, that's when you enter the next layer. Not of doing, but of being, where every breath emits precision. Every thought becomes a command, and every step aligns with a current already moving beneath the surface. Focus is the blade, and now you've begun to wield it. There's a moment when everything you've been practicing, feeling, focusing, aligning, crosses an invisible line. And when it does, something inside clicks. You no longer try to do the technique. You become the technique, not in theory, but in presence. This is where the sacred architecture of Thoth's teaching takes its final form. The divine signal stabilizes. Inner vision is no longer a glimpse. It's a state. And from this state, you shape reality, not by wishing but by emitting. To reach this place, one thing becomes essential: constancy. Not perfection, not intensity, constancy. Because even the clearest signal fades if it isn't sustained. You probably felt this. You get inspired. You align. Things shift. And then life pulls you back. Distraction, doubt, chaos. Your frequency drops. The field starts echoing a different signal again. And you wonder why things feel off or disconnected. But nothing broke. You just stopped broadcasting the right signal. Thoth was adamant about this. The universe doesn't reward effort. It responds to consistency. A vibrational rhythm. A pulse that continues. Not because you force it, but because you live it. This is where most people fall short. Not because their desire is wrong, but because they don't sustain the field long enough for the manifestation to take form. The vibration is clear, but brief. It flares like a candle in the wind and disappears before it builds momentum. Think of it like a radio station again. You tune in. You hear the signal. And then, static. You shift the dial, move around, get distracted. Suddenly you're broadcasting another frequency entirely. One of fear, one of self-doubt. And reality, faithful and precise, begins to reorganize again. Not to punish, but to reflect. So how do you stay tuned? Not with discipline of the mind, but with devotion of the frequency. This is what Thoth called vibrational devotion. It's not rigid. It's rhythmic. It's not about forcing yourself into high vibes. It's about living in alignment with your chosen signal. Feeling it, returning to it, repeating it. Not mechanically, but musically, like a drumbeat inside your chest. Like breath, like presence. And here's the secret. The longer you hold a clean frequency, the more real it becomes. It's like compounding interest, but energetic. The signal builds. The field starts responding not to a wish, but to a constant. An emission that doesn't waver. This is the moment when the shift becomes irreversible. You stop saying affirmations. You become the affirmation. You stop visualizing. You start vibrating what you saw. You stop chasing signs. You are the sign. Inner vision, once flickering, now anchors. You see through illusions automatically. You sense when something's off, not through paranoia, but precision. You start to predict energy before behavior, fields before words. And this isn't psychic ability in the fantasy sense. It's vibrational intelligence, refined and stabilized. But none of it holds without attention. Even with the clearest signal, if your attention becomes erratic, the field diffuses again. Focus sharpens the blade, but attention maintains the cut. And here's where a new layer of inner mastery comes in. Energy management. It's not just what you focus on. It's how long you hold it, how many leaks you close, how few contradictions you allow into your field. Thoth warned that even one recurring emotional leak, resentment, guilt, fear, can muddy the entire broadcast. That's not to scare you. It's to awaken you to the subtlety of real power. Because sustaining the divine signal isn't about force. It's about coherence. You don't force joy. You refine what blocks it. You don't manufacture peace. You remove the dissonance. And once the internal field is coherent, reality flows. The external begins to reorder. But here's where the ultimate threshold lies. And this is the part almost no one talks about. You must become compatible with what you say you want. Not wish for it. Not visualize it. Not affirm it. Match it. Your frequency must feel like it already contains the reality you seek. You don't attract abundance while radiating lack. You don't align with love while embodying unworthiness. You don't awaken your gifts while carrying the belief you're unready. This is why Thoth taught transformation through being, not doing. He knew that the field doesn't listen to commands. It listens to coherence. So how do you become compatible with a future that hasn't arrived yet? By living in it vibrationally. Now, you don't wait for evidence. You don't wait for validation. You emit as if it were already here. You think as that version of you. Feel as them. Decide as them. Move as them. And the more you do, the more the field reshapes to confirm it. This is not acting. It's aligning. You're not faking confidence. You're remembering the version of you that already holds it. You're not pretending to be loved. You're aligning with the truth that love is your natural frequency. You're not forcing outcomes. You're holding space for inevitability. And in this state, the divine powers awaken. Quietly, unmistakably, not as flashy miracles, but as constant synchronicities. Reality begins to organize with you, not against you. Because you're no longer emitting contradiction. You're sustaining harmony. People feel it. Places shift. Doors that seemed locked open without resistance. You're not manifesting in the pop spiritual sense. You're harmonizing with the structure of creation itself. This is what Thoth meant by the Great Alignment. A point where your mind, your emotional body, your attention, and your desire all vibrate in the same rhythm. One signal, one field, no noise. And in that silence, you realize you don't need to ask for anything anymore. You're already radiating the answer. And yes, it changes you. Your nervous system softens. Your reactions slow. You listen more. Speak less. You see people not as roles or obstacles, but as fields. You sense timelines. You read energy. You navigate with subtlety. This is what it means to have inner vision. Not to be above the world, but to be in tune with it. To sense the pulse beneath the visible. To live inside the code. And at this level, something profound occurs. Your life becomes the signal. You walk into a space and it calibrates. You speak and the room aligns. You think and the next step reveals itself. Not because you forced it, but because you've become the environment where clarity lives. This is the silent authority of inner vision. It doesn't dominate. It resonates. And that resonance is what Thoth knew would be feared. Not because it's dangerous, but because it's sovereign. You can't control someone who is internally aligned. You can't manipulate someone who sees through vibration. And that's why this technique was hidden. But you found it again. And if you're still here, still feeling the pulse, you're no longer the same. Not because you learned something new, but because something ancient inside you just woke up. A new field surrounds you now. When you're not just walking through, but commanding through presence, emotion, focus, and sustained vibration. You are no longer a receiver. You are the transmitter. And the divine signal is no longer outside you. It is you. If you've come this far, know this wasn't a video. It was an initiation, an activation hidden in plain sight. Not through a screen, but through frequency. A mirror held up to remind you of what you've always carried inside. Thoth's technique, the divine pulse, the language of vibration. This isn't about remembering who he was. It's about remembering who you are. You don't need to chase the mystical. You are the mystical. You don't need to wait for a sign. You've already become one. Your inner vision is now awake, not as a fantasy, but as a felt presence, a living perception that sees the world in frequency first and form second. From here, the path continues. It doesn't get louder. It gets quieter, more precise, more clear. You'll notice how life starts to soften around your vibration, how resistance begins to fade. And when challenges do arise, they won't break your focus. They'll refine it, because now your gaze is steady, your signal is clean, and your field is aligned. If this resonated, if something moved inside you, don't just leave it as a feeling. Anchor it, speak it, claim it. Let the universe know you've crossed the threshold. Leave a comment below. My inner vision has awakened. That phrase isn't just words. It's a declaration, a signal to the field, a new point of coherence. But before you go, don't miss what's next. A special video has been selected for you. Click the screen now and go even deeper into the journey. Inner vision has opened. Now let it lead.